Hello everybody, welcome to the weekend review for the Australian Grand Prix, the third round of the 2023 Formula 1 season as well. And we've been able to have a little bit more of a think than normal as well, because there's no racing for the next 4 weeks, which means we've had about 5 days to process the madness that happened. Alongside me is Jess and Josh once again, so the three J's together again, the same as it would be for Baku as well. Tom and Richie were supposed to be joining us, but Tom's busy and Richie is currently under the weather as well. So starting with you, Jess, as well, what did you make of the Australian Grand Prix? You didn't comment on the race as you were with us in qualifying, but you had a family tradition to keep up of watching it in the front room early in the morning.
Absolute chaos towards the end. Didn't know what was going on towards the end there. Bit quieter than usual in the middle though, but I think it was, confusion. That's my one word.
This is a better one as well to go forward. Josh, what about you? 4 hours we were stuck in that commentary box as well, across 3 red flags, and it was tiring for us as well early in the morning.
Chaos with a capital C. And some other words thrown in there which probably can't be said on air, but yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, wasn't it? FIA being FIA once again, and we'll get into that a little bit more later on, but one not to be one with the FIA shouldn't do it again, let's just say that.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to be back on the podcast as well after COVID in Saudi Arabia. Tom stepped in as well. You two were there as well, actually. You're becoming regulars on this one as well. Let's start then with through the field, and if you don't know how we do it as well, we go through the order of the field in terms of teams. So Red Bull were victorious. We go to start with Red Bull, then we'll go through Mercedes, Aston Martin, McLaren and so forth as well, talking about the two drivers. And really a great weekend. We'll start with Red Bull, of course. So Max Verstappen wins the race. He was top practice 1, third in practice 2, practice 3, qualifying and the race, topped it. Complete domination. And I think, Jess, as well, we all knew Verstappen was going to be the winner of the race after he passed Hamilton, and 2 corners later he was 2.5 seconds ahead of him.
And I think I was looking at the analysis of the DRS. He gained quite a lot with DRS alone on Hamilton, and he wasn't even using it, and vice versa. And even without DRS, they gained about, 15 kilometres per lap, which I have to say is insane. It's kind of like Hamilton's driving an F2 car and Verstappen driving an F1 car, for example. It's that, but you know, Verstappen, I think, did a really, really good job. He held his nerve anyway. He did get vulnerable for the race win at the start, with Russell getting him into turn 1 on lap 1. And then I think when the red flag happened, Lewis was able to keep the lead then as well. But I think without, obviously, George, that helped, I think, Verstappen solidify his win a little bit. So, because Hamilton did not have his teammate to help him. But obviously, we'll talk about Mercedes in a minute. But yeah, Verstappen, brilliant job. And don't forget, Perez started at the back due to him spinning out in qualifying turn 3.
Yeah, and Josh, Perez, shocking weekend as well. Practice 3, we were all commentating on that, and he was going off the track left, right and centre as well, doing ridiculous runs, qualifying together again as well. Yeah. And that was really a problematic situation. Qualified 20th, didn't qualify. Race came back up to 5th position as well. But for Sergio Perez, I think it was a masterclass of how to come through the field within, 3 red flags? And he only finished 5th because carnage happened on the restarts.
Yeah, Perez thought it was a nice December in Finland on a nice ice rink or across a nice frozen lake, and well, I mean, that kind of suits it with the lake in the middle of the Albert Park circuit, but horrible weekend, an absolute weekend to forget for Sergio Perez. But then on the other side of the garage, Max Verstappen, an amazing weekend, and I know that me and you, Joss, I think it was, and maybe you just changed your pick a winner due to gearbox issues and downshifts, but they seem to be fixed by Sunday and absolutely flew.
Right, let's hear from the two Red Bulls now what they had to say in the media pen.
It was very chaotic today, a bit of a mess to be honest. Especially the second red flag, I think that was really unnecessary today. That could have easily been solved with a virtual safety car or a safety car at most. But yeah, we got that red flag, and then you basically create even more trouble, because then you go out on very cold tires, the safety car is driving super slow, and then you arrive, to the grid with stone cold tires, and we could see everyone in turn 1 was having a lot of trouble, and especially the cars in dirty air. They, nobody crashes on purpose, but everyone went wide or had a touch, and yeah, it was just very chaotic.
When you look where we started and how difficult it was to pass with the DRS train that we end up, we managed to limit a bit the damage from yesterday.
Very positive then from Max Verstappen, and even more so surprisingly from Sergio Perez. But Jess, quick follow-up on the Red Bull situation before we move on to Mercedes. How much was he having to perform this weekend, especially because this was the first one that Danny Ricciardo was in the paddock for, and he was on the pit wall, and all of a sudden Danny Ric arrives Saturday, Sergio starts making errors. Is that a coincidence?
Well, I think if I was Perez, I would definitely be feeling the pressure, because obviously Ricciardo was in the team a while back as well. He did quite well, whereas obviously Perez, we was expecting him to go on the podium but starting on the back. We saw Max Verstappen do it from lower down on the grid. We were expecting him to get to on lap 25 to be near the front, and he wasn't. He was only like 7th position, and I think he was granted quite a lot of positions due to the carnage that happened at the end. But yeah, I feel like he could have done a lot better, I think, in Australia. I know he went from last to like 5th on the grid or whatever, but the Red Bull is the fastest car on the grid. He should have been a lot higher, no offence, but everyone else, I think, delivered because they had less pressure. And I think if Perez doesn't perform that well going forward, then they're going to have to bring Daniel Ricciardo in and back into the team, because obviously he knows the team very well. But obviously his win in Saudi Arabia helped him solidify his place on the team anyway, but you can't just rely on that Saudi Arabia victory to do well. But yeah, I would have definitely felt the pressure if I was Perez and Ricciardo was watching, and obviously Ricciardo having his band as well. So yeah, he needs to step up a little bit, because I was expecting Perez to be on the podium with Max Verstappen.
Yeah, and he wasn't, unfortunately, down in 5th position in total. Let's move on to a surprise podium placer of Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes then. Finished in 2nd as well, qualified 3rd on the grid. Actually, during one of the red flags on the restart, started on pole position on the lap 9 restart as well, and got ahead of Verstappen. But 2 laps later was overtaken by Max, and then just sort of entered a race-long battle between him and Fernando Alonso. But it was really Hamilton who sort of had the control throughout the race, Josh. And is this a sign that the W14 is sort of coming into its own, or is it that it was just the Albert Park circuit that's got the smoothness to it that it should flow well at?
Yeah, well, Mercedes have absolutely incredible stats at the Australian Grand Prix Albert Park circuit, and I think it was just the circuit. Lewis Hamilton knows the circuit so well, so well. And I think it was just, he felt maybe a little bit like a second home, like with how much he knows the circuit, and he just feels like he knows the circuit well, because he does, and feels like he's at home there with how good he does.
Jess, could Lewis challenge for wins this season? 3 races in, the car seems to be getting better. He was pretty much consistent throughout the weekend, his improvements as well. Hamilton, looking at his stats, 2nd in practice 1, practice 2, which was the wet session, was 13th, practice 3 in mixed conditions was 8th, and qualified 3rd, finished 2nd. Is he slowly on the rise to getting back to his first win since, I think, Saudi 2021?
I think it's too early to tell, but I think early signs of the Mercedes car showing that it is working the wind tunnel. I think they're starting to get some valuable data from that. Obviously, during the winter, they thought that they got it right, but the data showed that it wasn't, and we know what happened there. But I think it's really great to see that the car is improving to actually match Aston Martin and Ferrari. They're even beating Ferrari in the standings. That's a bit embarrassing if you're a Ferrari fan, but I think Mercedes are doing a lot better than Ferrari at the moment. They've gained more time versus last year compared to Ferrari, and if I was Ferrari, I'd be a bit worried, not gonna lie. But I think Mercedes' main goal, I think, with Lewis and George will have to be Aston Martin. I think that's their main goal, to try and get near them. And Lewis did that in Australia. He beat Alonso, he beat Stroll, and I think it is too early to say if he'll get the win. As my family, my mum and dad is a Lewis fan, so they hope that Lewis could get the win. I hope so too. That will be amazing to see him get his first victory since 2021 to prove the critics wrong, I would say. I think I think the only way Lewis could get the victory is if Verstappen has his downshift problems again and the car's just slow, because the Red Bull's just unstoppable at the moment, but too early to tell. But I pray that a Mercedes get at least a few wins this season, so it's not just a Red Bull domination.
And talking about from one side of Mercedes doing really well, the other not. George Russell, akin to what happened to Jenson Button in 2006, coming out the last corner. His engine blew up, a ball of smoke as well, and flames coming from the back of it. And that put paid to a disappointing afternoon for him. 18th officially and DNF'd from the race. But he was 9th in practice 1, 4th practice 2 and 3, and qualified 2nd on the grid. Russell was having a storming weekend, Josh, and then it all goes wrong for him out the last corner. Is this a one-off for Mercedes? They don't usually have engine blows like that. Or is this now something that's a little bit alarming coming for the team down the road as well? We're only 3 races in and one engine's gone bang.
Yeah, well, I really hope that this is a one-off for Mercedes, so they can get up near the top, battling for podiums and maybe even wins. But it's hard for George Russell having to take that engine failure, especially when it's like rare for Mercedes and not frequent, like I hate to say this, but not frequent like Ferrari. Sorry, Ferrari fans, but it's
again
true.
Somewhere Matt Gallagher has just come off stage and he's now screaming about the fact that Leclerc's only got 6 points in the standings as well. Yeah, absolutely as well. And just coming on Russell's situation as well, we said in one of the practice sessions that Russell could outperform Hamilton in the championship this year. Is that still the case going away from Australia? Is it still possible that he could be there?
He could do. I think he would have been ahead of Lewis, I think, without that engine issue. And don't forget, he's out-qualified Lewis 3 times this season, and we've had 3 races.
Yeah.
But I think in some races, Lewis has outshone him in a way as well. I think the first race in Bahrain, I remember Lewis outscored George. I think, and then Saudi Arabia, I think it was 1-1 a little bit. I think it's gonna be closer than last season. I think Lewis was just very unlucky. I think Lewis seems to have a better hand of the W14 than the W13. So I think it's gonna be tight. And if George beats Lewis, it's not gonna be a slam dunk. It could be like 1 or 2 points in it. I think they're quite equal in terms of pace, I think.
And I was really disappointed as well, because we were saying in the commentary, the red flag came out. I mean, Tom called it was going to be the first red flag for Albon's accident we'll get on to later. That was a red flag. Mercedes pitted Russell, lost the lead, but even so, I think that was a silly mistake to make for Mercedes. They had track position with Russell leading, and they box him and drop him down to 7th position. It was a gamble anyway, and it was a risk that is very unusual to see Mercedes sort of turn into Ferrari in terms of strategy. They're forgetting how to lead out front. They're thinking they've got to undercut people.
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think George, I believe, made that call to come in during because it was a safety car to start with. And I think when they were talking in the red flag situation, I think George was annoyed but wasn't angry at the team. So yeah, that strongly suggested was his call. And he was like, don't worry, we will still get the win. We keep focused. He still thought it was the right call anyway, even with that thing. So it just shows that he still values in the team, and I think that camaraderie at the end, even if he didn't after, they still said thank you. I think he still had a positive weekend. His weekend was not awful compared to some others. At least he qualified well, and at least he had a good few free practice sessions as well. But I just hope they're up there in Baku, because there's so many things that can go wrong in Baku. We saw Verstappen crash, I believe, and had a puncture. Yeah. We saw Perez, I think, the year before had that. So this could be the race we see Mercedes take the win. And don't forget, there's also the sprint weekend as well. If their car, like if one of the cars like break down or something, that could be a big issue. But yeah, I think it's nice to see George took this weekend positively, even with that DNF, and he was still supporting, I think, Lewis even after DNF as well. So there was no bad fire, which was great to see.
Yeah, he was spying on the Red Bulls as well.
He was.
I found it hilarious. Second red flag, he's just sat there against the pit wall with shades on as well, looking at the Red Bull. And I think, Josh, didn't Toto go out at one point as well during the final red flag? He too. It's like George went back and said, just go and take a look at the rear of their car. And Toto went out at one point. I swear that was the thing.
I think so, but George Russell became the new James Bond. It sounded. it looked like on the second red flag, but
yeah, license to
Was
latte.
he speaking to Daniel Ricciardo as well?
Yes, he
in
was.
the red
Yeah,
flag?
that was the
Yeah.
final
That was
red
quite
flag.
cool.
Yeah, Red Bull sent Danny Ricciardo to get him away from the car. I thought it was brilliant. It was like,
Yeah.
just go and distract George, please. Don't let him look at our car. Okay, let's hear what the team Mercedes then had to say. They're speaking now to Lawrence Burter.
This is an incredible result for us. We came here, thinking the car was the same. So we were thinking it's going to struggle for a few races until we can find some sort of upgrade to bring later on down the line. And that could be like 5 races away. So we're like just going to just thug it out for like 5 races and see how we do. But for us to qualify on the front 2 rows and then be in the mix with both first and second for a second, oh my God, it was really super exciting and really unfortunate for George because he was doing such a great job. But to have a great battle with Fernando was really awesome.
I guess when it's not your day, it's not your day, and pretty disappointed initially with the decision to red flag the race, but I thought we made the right decision. Pitting I think was the right call under the safety car. I was surprised when I saw Lewis and Max stay out, and I was kind of pretty pleased when I saw that because I thought it was played right into my hands. The restart was great, the strategy decision was the right one. It's just such a shame to be stood here right now.
So that's what happened then with the Red Bulls talking in the Mercedes. We've heard from 2 teams. Now let's move on to the third, and it's Aston Martin, the big surprise so far of 2023. Fernando Alonso rounding out the podium in 3rd position as well, but it was so nearly not, as on the last restart with the 2-lap sprint up the inside at turn number 1, Carlos Sainz and the Ferrari locked up and hit the side of Alonso, sending him spinning into the barrier. The car wasn't damaged, got back to the pit lane, and then was making complaints over the radio saying that the grid should be reformed from the original start positions on lap 57 because not everybody had gone across sector line 1. The stewards listened and they agreed with the precedence of Zhou at Silverstone last year when the red flag came out. He had to start from the original grid positions, and Alonso was gifted 3rd place back. So coming to you, Jess, for the first time in this one as well. Was that the right decision to let Alonso keep his podium? It created a lot of debate across social media.
It was, but you have to keep the consistency up. Like you were saying with the British Grand Prix, they had no reference point for the positions, so they had to revert back to the starting position. I know there were a few teams that weren't happy with this, and we'll talk about that when we get to them. But I think if they didn't revert back to that, I think that would have caused more issues with FIA's consistency. We know what happened in Saudi Arabia. So I think they had to, because unless the red flag was called after that reference point, they could have done that, but they didn't. It was called before the reference point, so they had to revert back to the starting order, which was good. And I think that gave, both the Aston Martin a sigh of relief. But yeah, imagine the drama if it didn't go back to the original starting position. It'll be like FIA 40 lap 58 all over again.
They actually did this time as well, which I found hilarious. They actually did void lap 58. So somebody listened, but it's on the weekend that Michael Masi was there as well. Everybody kept saying. Josh, coming through as well. Yeah, Alonso was in a battle with Hamilton throughout the race, and because we had the constant red flags, it wasn't really a matter of pit stop passing. Everyone was on the hard tyres from the lap 10 restart, took them to the second red flag. So the question is, has Alonso still got the race pace because he couldn't get ahead of Hamilton throughout that Grand Prix?
Has he not? It's kind of hard to tell after just one Grand Prix. But I think he's still got it, just maybe not Alonso's track.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, Jess, and you, Joss, Fernando Alonso getting his podium back, that's the right decision, but how sad is it?
Nearly.
Hulkenberg first podium.
So
he would have
close.
got it as well. Oh.
They have launched an intent to appeal. We'll get more into that later on as well about the 5-second penalty. Even Ferrari are battling it back, saying that it shouldn't have been as well. So it's getting everywhere. But yeah, over the radio as well, Sainz given that penalty. So Alonso reinstated to third. Another driver who got benefited from the race results changing as well. Lance Stroll had a poor weekend up in practice. 10th in practice 1, 16th practice 2, 9th practice 3, qualified 6th, so not too bad. Dropped back a lot in the race, but was able to finish in 4th position. So Stroll, is he sort of getting used to the car? He didn't have any pre-season testing in it, and 2 broken wrists as well in the start of the season. They've just about healed. Are we now seeing this is what he's capable of? Maybe even challenging for regular podiums? Whoever wants to take that one first. I've left it a bit open there. Jess, do you want to go?
Well, I think Stroll's wrist, remember, was damaged at the start of the season, and I think we're starting to see him climb back to where he should be, because he, like you said, he qualified low down and he finished 4th. I think that's a real statement that the car is quick and Stroll is actually delivering it. He's not that paid driver status that we would have said. He's actually... I remember saying, I think in one of the race reviews, that I do have, I think, starting to see faith in Lance Stroll after his previous performances. Obviously, he'd made a mistake on the restart. He locked up. He went in the gravel. We thought his race would have been over by then, like we saw with Albon, but he recovered and he did not give up. And he even said, it's like a roller coaster of emotions. You'll be happy with one position, but you're sad that someone was penalised with that. But... yeah, still second in the championship as well. I can't remember where Stroll is in the drivers. I think he's obviously with a few retirements. I think Stroll is obviously
up to 5th, I think. Yeah.
Up to 5th, yeah. So I think behind... Is it behind Hamilton?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah, just behind Hamilton. So, yeah, that could be an interesting rivalry. I wasn't expecting a Stroll-Hamilton rivalry this season.
And Josh, coming to you, simple question for this. Could we see Stroll overtake Alonso in the sort of progression fight that we've seen Alonso through, or is this now Alonso just utterly going for it and nobody can catch him in terms of the progression and development of the Aston Martin and the quest for wins, so to speak?
Well, I mean, we're only just finished the 3rd race season, so kind of a little bit hard to tell right now, but anything can happen in the world of Formula 1, and I don't think anyone would be believing me when I say this, that when Lance Stroll is actually doing well in a Formula 1 season.
I know, even I'm scared about that. It's not doing completely right, is it, Jess, about Stroll? But as you say, he's moving away from the paid driver role, which is great to see.
And he's qualified in Q3 for every race this season. We haven't seen that in the last few seasons, so it shows that he does have the car, he does have the talent as well. And I think it's great to see Aston Martin being up there and not just being near the bottom. So yeah, I think he's one of the only drivers outside of obviously Red Bull and Mercedes to get into Q3 every time, with Alonso as well. So yeah, I think I hope that we'll start to see less drama on social media with Stroll being rubbish. He's not. I hope we won't see the memes what we saw in Monaco a couple of years ago with the replays. That was quite funny. But
you just got strolled.
I want to see that for a race Whittle overtakes. Okay, let's hear what they've got to say then. Alonso and Stroll, they're in the media pen.
It was not an easy race. I think matching the pace of Mercedes was not easy. Also Ferrari and Alpine, they were putting some pressure behind me. So I tried to force a mistake from Luis all race long, tried to get close, but he drove fantastically well as a champion he is, and no mistakes. I only remember one lock-up in 10:13 in 58 laps. So yeah, it was not possible today to put pressure, but we take P3.
I think we got away with, some stuff going wrong at the end. I had my big lockup, and I was kind of running in third, and then I went off the tracks just with the tires being super cold. And Fernando got hit and spun, and then, I think we lucked out with the timing of the red flags. So, take it. Some good points.
On to McLaren now, and I think we're just combining them together because both of them were running outside of the top 10 throughout the Grand Prix, making some good overtakes with the AlphaTauris. But on the last restart as well, they got through all of the chaos and was able to secure their first points of the season. Lando Norris in 6th and Oscar Piastri in 8th place. So Lando picking up 8 points, and we see Piastri picking up 4 points as well. So 12 for the team is very, very big news indeed. And I think, Jess, that's great. Oscar Piastri, home soil as well, gets his first points in Formula 1. Lando, after a bad start of the season, gets up there. And let's not forget, at one point in the race, we were saying, oh no, it's happened to McLaren again, because Lando and Piastri had to pit on the opening couple of laps of the race because of damage. But they got back up and get points. It's fantastic. A good news story finally for McLaren after 2 miserable races.
I think it just goes to show that I think McLaren did not have the quali pace in Australia. Obviously, they both didn't make it to Q3, but they had the race pace and they were able to avoid the carnage, make some good moves. I think I saw Piastri making a few moves as well, which was absolutely brilliant. You can tell he was living the moment at his home Grand Prix, and I think he looked delighted that he got points at his home Grand Prix, and what a story as well. He's a great driver that's come through the ranks. Obviously, when he has the car to be better, obviously he will score higher. But at the moment, he has no pressure on his side. It's his first season in Formula 1. He could just take the good results that everybody else seems to not get due to red flags, and there you go. Because I think at one point he would have been 10th without that red flag. Carnage at the moment.
Yeah.
So double points. I think both drivers will be very happy with that, and I think Norris's overtake was outstanding as well. I think there was one point he could have almost got Stroll, but he didn't. So yeah, outstanding weekend from both of them. And I have to say, one of the surprises of the weekend, the good surprises. So yeah, great job, and beating Ferrari. Just saying.
Yeah, that's the biggest kick for Ferrari as well. Lando Norris now has more points than Charles Leclerc, and in just one race, and Leclerc hasn't finished 2 of them. He's only finished 1, so technically it's a level field, but that's embarrassing still for Ferrari. We'll get onto them later on in the race. I think their next one's up actually on the. No, it's Haas next up on the board as well. That's how bad Ferrari were during the day. So Josh, coming to you on it as well. It's a good news story for Oscar Piastri as well, because a lot of pressure was on him as well. The media was saying as well, we weren't because we knew how bad McLaren had it, but a lot of the media was saying, oh, has he made a mistake signing with McLaren when Alpine have been doing really well in the start of the season? Now, I think, is this the start of McLaren building confidence back up with the team and sort of developing from here? We've got the upgrade package coming for them in Baku. Things can only go up from here, right?
Yeah, well, I hope so, and I'm going to say the word.
Uh-oh.
It is going to be interesting how McLaren do in Baku with all of their upgrades. But there was a little bit of pressure with Oscar Piastri as well, because of course he replaced Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo moved to Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo was in the paddock and on the pit walls, but it's good to see that Oscar Piastri did well at his own Grand Prix.
Yeah, about that Daniel Ricciardo situation as well. In the team principals press conference, Christian Horner was asked how is Daniel adjusting, and he said he's come back to us and he's picked up a few habits as well. He's not quite looking like his old self. He's a bit thinner as well. He's a bit less motivated. And he turns to Zach Brown alongside him and says, I don't know what you did to him over there. Just a cool little dig under the line, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Yeah, so great day then for McLaren. Lando 6th, Oscar 8th. They're talking in the media pen with Lawrence.
A good day, P6, some reasonable points for us. Same for Oscar, to have him in the points at the same time. We just stayed out of trouble, which was the biggest challenge today.
is avoiding the people locking up and causing chaos. So yeah, I'm happy the team have done a good job, and we deserved it.
Yeah, happy to be in the points. What better place to do it than at home? Yeah, I think we were there when it mattered, and whatever bad luck we had in the first 2 races, I think came out as good luck today. So no, we avoided all the carnage there at the end when we needed to be, and yeah, I think in clean air the pace was pretty solid for both me and Lando. I think for me, just got stuck behind Yuki for too long and kind of got dragged out of the race. So yeah, a few things to improve from my side, but for now, just happy to be in the points here at home.
Next up then is Haas, and a great weekend as well for Nico Hülkenberg, getting points back in Formula 1. Not such a great weekend though for Kevin Magnussen, being 17th in the DNF. But we'll start actually with Magnussen, unusually, because it had a direct effect on Nico Hülkenberg, so it's just easier to explain together. Magnussen finished 17th in the DNF, was running just outside the points, but exited turn 1, hit the wall, and his rear right tyre blew off. Carcass was left on the circuit, debris across everywhere, Magnussen stopping at the chicane and having to cause a red flag with 3 laps to go, meaning we're going to have a 2-lap sprint to the end of the race. A part of Magnussen's wheel actually went up in the air over the catch fencing, came down and lacerated the arm of one of the fans, a Magnussen fan as well, but he is in good spirits, and luckily it was just a scratch. So starting with you, Jess, Kevin Magnussen as well. Rookie error hitting the wall as well, but after that he wasn't exactly having a great weekend. 20th in practice 1, 19th practice 2, 18th practice 3, qualified 14th, and ended the race in 17th. He was the worst one of the weekend, I think, for consistency. What's happened to Kevin? He's gone nowhere.
I don't know, really. I think Hülkenberg, no offence to Magnussen, Hülkenberg's performing better than Magnussen. Yeah. And I think Magnussen's been so used to having Schumacher, who obviously didn't perform as well last season, and he was being a bit complacent. Whereas now he has to deliver more. Haas is a team that can score more consistently than other teams, and it's just a bit worrying that he's up there near the back again, and we don't want him to be get rid of in the team because of that. And that crash just looked very weird. I mean, I've never seen that before in my life. I think he just made a mistake. It kind of reminds me of Lando Norris in Saudi Arabia, but it was a bit more dramatic than Saudi Arabia, I have to say. And yeah, I think he was also unlucky with the red flags, personally, the first one, because he was the one, along with Russell, who pitted during the safety car. He was, I think, 11th place at the time, and then he went backwards, which was a shame. But yeah, I keep talking about the teammates under pressure thing. I think it's the same for Haas. I think if obviously Magnussen doesn't start to improve, Haas is gonna look elsewhere for F2 drivers that could possibly do a lot better. But yeah, no offence, Hülkenberg's doing a lot better at the moment, and Hülkenberg has been out of the sport for a couple of years now.
Okay, let's hear from them both, because oh no, my camera's come back to me. Okay, it was frozen. I was just about to throw to the media pen, but never mind. My camera's returned to me as well. I've used the force. Okay, yeah, and coming through then as well, Josh. Hülkenberg got benefited because of the red flag, and on the restart with 2 to go, got up into 4th place because of all the accidents that were happening in front of him, Stroll locking up and going off the track, and he was right behind Carlos Sainz. Now, if the results had stood, Sainz would have got that 5-second penalty. Hülkenberg would have got his first ever podium in Formula 1, the same for Haas, and it didn't work out. So it's now led to the protest that Haas have protested to the stewards, the entire thing, saying that, look, this isn't right. The results should have been taken. Everyone had passed mini sectors because all the timings had updated. So there was a result to take a stand, and it wasn't an opening lap of the Grand Prix. We had a result where you could take it because it's at the end of the Grand Prix. So that appeal got dismissed by the FIA, but I understand Haas have now launched a right to appeal. So we're still not over this, if I'm right.
Yeah, I don't... Nothing on the FIA official website for the official documents, final race classification and championship.
Only Ferrari.
Yeah, but nothing on the about documents, but the final race classification says subject to a notice of intention of appeal by Haas F1. So it's still, I don't think it's over, and it's going to be a bit like I'm going to mention it, Abu Dhabi 2021.
You had to mention it, didn't you? You had to mention Abu Dhabi.
You did.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of like it. And,
it's similar,
Johns, it's I know it's the 4th month of the year, but you've still got 27 days until the 4th of May.
That is true. So I can't do anything just yet. I've got to start my Star Wars rewatch though coming through, because there's now so many films you can't watch them all in 24 hours like you'd be able to used to. Okay, right then, let's hear what the Haas drivers had to say in the media briefing.
It was wild and a bit messy at times. I think we have to look through how everything happened and what the actions were. It was a lot of things happening. It was very dynamic. Had a super start, I think this 3rd time around on softs, and came up through to P4 actually. Shame that there were a few incidents and they reflected. Otherwise, there could have been a really strong result today.
Can you just talk me through that moment that you had? Looked like a big hit as well.
I didn't even feel it, so it definitely wasn't something that felt big in the car, but it was enough to crack the rim and take the tire off. So unfortunately, we went P12, so I think at that time it didn't look like I was going to be able to score points. I think we got unlucky with the red flag because we just pitted out of P11, and we seemed to be quicker than the next couple of cars, so I was fairly confident at that stage of the race, and then we pitted on the safety car and just have to pit it and turn into a red flag, and then everyone puts their tires on and goes to the end, so I was last. So not my day.
Okay, now on to Alfa Romeo as well, going into today, and it was quite an interesting race for them, picking up some points with Zhou Guanyu going into 9th position, Valtteri Bottas though down in 11th, Bottas having a usual weekend as well, not qualifying too well. Neither drivers actually got out of Q1, which was surprising, but Zhou had great race pace, Jess, and got up to 9th. He was in battles with everybody in the field.
I have to say, Joe is improving with this Alfa Romeo car. Obviously, he joined the team last year. He got his first points in Bahrain last year as well. And I think every race he just gets better and better. He is not the driver that I thought he was going to be, where he's going to be near the back and be like a Nicholas Latifi. I mean, he's just settling into F1 better than expected. And you can tell that he was not afraid to get his elbows out. Yeah. And it was just amazing. Of course, he benefited from Carlos Sainz's penalty. He's now got 2 points instead of 1. But I think the Alfa Romeo car just suited again. It was like McLaren didn't have a good car in qualifying, but in the race, it was just electric. He had a battle with Magnussen as well, which I have to say was pretty good as well. And there was hardly any mistakes from the Alfa Romeo team, and they benefited from the carnage, I would say. I don't know how they survived it. It was very close to them being out of the race as well. But I think they found it's quite a tricky trap. But yeah, Joe is definitely settling in to Alfa Romeo and definitely improving race on race.
And Josh, Valtteri Bottas in P11, many people questioning how long is he going to stay in Formula 1. 3 bad weekends in a row now for a former top driver. Has he lost the spark? Is it still there? Because the results just aren't delivering as much anymore.
Yeah, and if Valtteri Bottas does go, and if he doesn't pick up, it could be a possibility. One driver who could replace him, Théo Pourchaire.
Yeah, great shout, actually. Pourchaire doing really well in F2 at the moment. Okay, let's hear from the Alpha boys. Down with Lawrence in the media pen.
At the end of the day, it was a good result for me to grab my first points of the season, but if the red flag didn't come, or we could be finished maybe P8, P7. But nevertheless, I was happy with the progress we made, considering we were starting at the back of the grid today. The car was a lot more racy compared to yesterday, so I feel like I was able to fight in the mix with, let's say, the guys around me, so I was happy.
I don't think I saw you on the telly once today. What was your race like?
Lonely. Yeah, it was not that much action until action started at the end. It was for me quite unfortunate that we took a risk on the strategy, so I pitted on lap 1. We got to the hard tire, aiming to do the whole race with the hard. But then the red flag after meant that everybody was more or less on the same strategy, so couldn't get advantage of that. And then pitted for the soft towards the end, just before the red flag came, and then everybody was in soft again. So just didn't have much luck on the red flags today.
Okay, moving on to AlphaTauri as well. Yuki Tsunoda getting in the points as well in 10th position, but Nick de Vries being in 15th. And I think it all results down again with the red flag on the restart. So we'll go for that. De Vries out of the race, got punted at the back by Logan Sargent into the gravel trap at turn 1. Tsunoda got promoted up to 10th because of all the carnage that happened in front of him. But Tsunoda, I think, was the star of the weekend. He was having battles with Magnussen, Norris, Piastri as well. The battle for 10th, Jess, was really, really strong.
I think because the battles for the higher points paying positions there weren't any. I think all the attention was drawn between that battle, and again, Tsunoda was another driver that held his own as well. I think it took him, I think, a lot longer to get used to the AlphaTauri car. As much as he was expecting, but again, he's showing signs of promise. I think what helps him is obviously he's the first driver now, which I think is giving him a bit of sense of confidence that he's helping improve the car in some way, as well as just driving the car and stuff like that. But yeah, his battles were amazing. We weren't seeing the angry radio messages like we saw in Saudi Arabia, so I think it was kind of a lead. I believe it was Tsunoda's first points, wasn't it?
Yeah, the season, yeah.
It was. I was expecting him to get points in the first couple of races, but he just missed out on both occasions. But yeah, great result from Tsunoda as well. I think for De Vries, though, another race where he didn't do well. Even with the DNF, he didn't do well anyway before that. But again, very unlucky with his DNF. I think without that, he would have probably capitalised as well. But yeah, I think I was starting to get into that debate. Is it the car, or is it the driver, or is it both? It's hard to tell because AlphaTauri has a good car, but with Tsunoda performing, it could be the driver.
That's a good point. Yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be a lot better coming forward as they too are having updates. Josh, just coming to you as well. In terms of Nick de Vries, starred in a Williams, struggling at the Alpha as well. Is it a case that the Formula E World Champion is racing at circuits he's had no previous experience at? He did really good in Bahrain, but now he's struggling coming into Saudi Arabia, Australia, Baku's next. He's raced there before. So are we just seeing him struggle to adapt to the F1 lifestyle?
Yeah, I think so, and hopefully next season he'll be able to pick up, or even later in the season, of course. Keep an eye on Nick de Vries at Mexico.
Yes.
With some of
and Monza.
Most of the Formula E circuit used there, only the little pass through at the stop as well, and then the shorter front straight as well. But yeah, keep an eye on Nick de Vries for Monza, as you said, Jess, but Mexico as well. But back to Australia, yeah, I think Nick de Vries is just finding his feet. AlphaTauri, give him till Baku, maybe.
Yeah.
I think he'll struggle at Miami as well.
Yeah, Miami's going to be a really struggling one as well for him. They're relaying that surface as well in a month's time for that race. Okay, let's hear from them from Lawrence.
I mean, without red flag, I scored points P5. So the instance happens was behind myself after I passed the Pierre. So even without instant, I was having a P5. So I had to make a start after red flag. So it's really a shame. It's a bit frustrated. I ended up P10, but still first time first scoring points in the season, and yeah. We should take that, yeah.
Logan said that he's sorry, obviously, for clubbering you out of the race. What's your kind of emotions right now, ending up in the gravel?
Can happen. Everyone can make a mistake and a misjudgment, and it's a racing incident. We'll move on and hope for a better race next time.
Okay, on to Ferrari now as well, and we'll start with Charles Leclerc, who DNF'd from the race 3 turns into the Grand Prix as well. Jess, this is not going well for him. Such a rookie mistake as well. Surprised we didn't hear a big scream from him on the radio. Only 6 points from the opening 3 races. This Ferrari team is just going down, down, deeper and down under.
I think he was just very, very unlucky to get caught and had the spin. He's been in the sport for quite a long time. No one who has had that much experience as him should have done that as well. I'm surprised he didn't go, no, on the radio. But you could tell he looked very frustrated. He got out the car straight away as well. This is not the driver that, like we saw last year. It's a bit of frustration, angry at the team as well. The team are not performing as well, and I can think of one person who was absolutely frustrated with Leclerc's result. I'm going to nick Josh T saying Matthew Gallagher.
Yeah. Everyone was, I could hear him screaming. So much so that Matt Gallagher actually put on his girlfriend Sophie's jacket of Red Bull and Red Bull hats and everything as well. So he's just changed side. Josh, coming on to Carlos Sainz then, demoted down to 12th with a 5-second time penalty for making contact with Fernando Alonso on the restart. Ferrari are appealing that decision, which I think is ridiculous because it's the easiest 5-second penalty we've seen in F1 history. What did you make of all that then with Carlos Sainz? It's a fair penalty, but Ferrari is having one of their worst weekends since I think Monza 2020.
Yeah, and Ferrari just want to forget about it, but they're not letting it go. With all of the appeals, if it gets taken away, I'll be very surprised, and I think there'll be a lot of uproar about the FIA again. But going back to Charles Leclerc, I think Fred Vasseur might have been on the radio saying, no, Charles, that was so not right.
Okay, well, Ferrari weren't one to talk with the media. In fact, in one of the parts as well, Carlos Sainz said he didn't want to speak about anything today. He had to go to the steward's room as well, but this is what they had to say when Lawrence Barretta pushed them.
Hey, Carlos, what are your thoughts on that 5-second time penalty?
Sorry, right now I cannot talk. I'm too angry, too disappointed, I just cannot say anything. I prefer to go to stewards, get the penalty away because I don't think I deserve it, and it's the most unfair penalty I've seen in my life.
Hey, Charles, it was really tight, obviously, running down to turn 3. What's your read of what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, turn 1 I took it easy. Turn 3 I wasn't really planning an overtake at first on Lance. Then I saw that he had to brake very early because of Fernando in front that was braking early. So I released the brakes and put myself alongside Lance. And then Fernando had to brake even more, so Lance found himself between me and Fernando. And he couldn't turn in, and we had contact. I'm not pointing the finger on Lance because I think he just had no choice once Fernando slowed down the car the second time. And for me, it was just impossible to see whether Lance was staying behind Fernando or he was just in between, which I obviously didn't think that he was there. So just extremely frustrating. I mean, it's the worst start to the season ever, really.
Okay, not much to talk about with the Alpines then for them here today as we're running out of time, but they were the biggest losers from the restart on the last 2 laps as well. Gasly going across the track as well, Ocon making contact, both Alpines slamming into the wall, the exit of turn 2. Out of the race they went, Gasly finishing in 13th, Ocon 14th, and you've just got to say, Jess, as well, what a rotten bit of luck.
That was a rotten bit of luck, and I don't think this would have happened if the red flag wouldn't be called out about a standing start. It should have been a rolling start, personally, because it was so close to the end of the race, but the FIA wants entertainment. Hashtag Netflix Drive to Survive. But it was investigated, the incident, and luckily I think Ocon was saying to him, there's nothing I think Gasly could have done at that point, and I think that's why no further action was said, because I think they would have. I think the results would have affected the team. And don't forget, because I was looking at I think one of the videos about penalty points. I think it was P1 with Matt and Tommy. They were discussing it. If Gasly got a penalty for that incident, Gasly would not have raced in
That's
Baku.
true. Yeah.
So do you think that would have influenced the decision? Maybe that's probably why they were like, you know what, we don't want you to get a race back. You need to help us out here. That's probably why. I don't know, but that's something to take into consideration. If Gasly would have got penalty points, race ban for Baku, and that wouldn't have been good.
Josh, do you reckon it's also part of the fact that he got very lucky in the fact he hit his teammate? In the case that the Alpine said, no, we don't want that investigated. It was fine. So I think that's a very lucky accident for Gasly. I agree with Jess there. That was so close to a race ban for him.
Yeah, very lucky indeed. But one thing that could have happened is Pierre Gasly going up to the steward's room, or as known as the principal's office, and going, no sir, please.
Yeah, no ban, please. Okay, well, it was a bad day for Alpine. I think the worst alongside Ferrari. This is what they had to say in the media pen.
Hey Pierre, for one lap that would have been an incredible result. Just sum up your emotions right now.
I don't have anything to say. I'm just extremely disappointed, and just want to remember the positive. We didn't expect to be fighting one Ferrari and to have Alonso in my sights for most of the race, so that's what we'll remember the rest. I just have no comment for now, and I'm way too disappointed to be standing here and looking these guys doing one lap.
It's difficult to digest, and obviously that last restart, very chaotic start, a lot of cars off the track. Obviously Pierre came back off the track to on the track, and left me no room, and we collided, but no hard feelings. They could have been anyone, and he came and apologized. So it's all good on that side. It's just that it never seemed to tick on our way this weekend.
Okay, on to our final team then, and it's Williams as per usual. A disappointing weekend for them. Logan Sargent on the last restart, as we said earlier, locking up and running into the back of Nick de Vries, beating them both in the gravel trap, so he finishes 16th. But the man who started it all off and sort of ruined the race, in my opinion, even though it's accidentally, because we were having a great fight at the front between two Mercedes and a Red Bull. I thought that was going to be really great. 9 laps of exciting racing stopped by Alexander Albon losing control at turn 6 and 7, hitting the wall, bit of barrier damage, bit of gravel on the circuit. They had to bring out a big truck to sweep it up, ergo red flag. And that first red flag though, I think, Jess, as well, in fact both the red flags, very light calls to stop the race in both instances.
Personally, with the first one, I think it should have been a safety car, personally, but I can understand why they put it as a red flag. But what a shame for Albon. He was doing so well. He had a good qualifying as well. He was consistently in the top 10 all weekend. He had the pace. He was, I think he's going to have the meme of being purple sector 2 and not getting pole. But I think before that incident, he was generally really brilliant. I think he could have got points without it. And it was just a shame that he had a spin, because what confidence that would have brought to the team. But for me, it should have been a safety car, not a red flag.
And Josh, we were saying as well throughout the race, Albon was our sort of shining star. He wasn't just holding on to that top 10. He was competing. He was running in 8th place when he crashed, and he was getting up into the battle for 6th as well. So that Williams has genuine pace, but they need better qualifying, because Sargent was 18th, although Albon got into 8th. So going forward, are we going to see Williams as regular challengers for the top 10 points?
Well, yeah, hopefully, yeah. And in my personal opinion, the Albon red flag, it was on the border between safety car and red flag, but it was more towards the border of red flag due to the amount of gravel on the circuit and having to bring the sweepers out and having to put 10s, 20, 30 marshals on the track and covering the whole track. But Williams, an unfortunate double DNF. Last time they double DNF'd was the 2022 Singapore Grand Prix, who also double DNF'd at the 2023 Australian Grand Prix. Alpine, who also double DNF'd at the 2020 Singapore Grand Prix. Alpine.
Isn't that weird?
Oh no!
I hate that. That's what we need you for, with the coincidences. Okay, right. Let's hear from the Williams guys then. In the media pen on the other side, we'll take a look at the results and the drivers and constructors standings.
I felt like I braked where I did on the previous 2 starts, but just seemed like nothing was up to temperatures, brakes, tires.
hit the pedal, and it was immediate. Both fronts locked, and there was nothing I could do from there. So sorry to Nick. I didn't want to end the day like that. It was a tough enough day as it was, and yeah, it was disappointing to end like that.
Hey, Alex, firstly, how are you feeling? Because that looked like a big impact.
Yes, all fine, all fine. More disappointed and sorry for the team than anything else. We had a great car today. I think even the first few laps of the race we were strong. We were really happy with the car. It was just yeah, very unfortunate.
So Max Verstappen wins the Australian Grand Prix then. Lewis Hamilton taking an unlikely podium in second, with Fernando Alonso rounding out the podium in third. Lance Stroll fourth, Sergio Perez from the back of the grid up to fifth with the fastest lap. Lando Norris getting his first points of the year with 8, and then we got Hülkenberg with 6 points in 7th. Piastri 8th place, 4 points for him. Zhou on 2 and Tsunoda rounding out the top 10. Bottas and Sainz complete the finishers. Then it's a long list of DNFs with Gasly, Ocon, De Vries, Sargent, Magnussen, Russell, Albon and Leclerc all out of the Grand Prix. In the Drivers' Championship, Max Verstappen now leads on 69 points, Sergio Perez is on 54, Fernando Alonso on 45, Lewis Hamilton on 38, Carlos Sainz has 20, the same as Lance Stroll, George Russell is on 18, Lando Norris on 8, Nico Hülkenberg on 6, the same as Charles Leclerc. Then Valtteri Bottas has 4 points, the same as Esteban Ocon and Oscar Piastri and Pierre Gasly, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the same. Zhou Guanyu has 2, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen and Alexander Albon on 1, Logan Sargent and Nick De Vries, the 2 drivers yet to score in the championship this season. In the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull lead the way on 123 points, Aston Martin have 65, 9 clear of Mercedes on 56, Ferrari have 26 points, McLaren now move up from last to 5th with 12, Alpine have 8, 1 clear of Haas on 7, who are 1 clear on Alfa Romeo, who are on 6, AlphaTauri and Williams both have 1 point to their names. Okay, then we've got a month to wait until the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. There's nothing on this weekend, but you can watch the Moto 2 and Moto 3 races from Portugal and Argentina as well. They'll be broadcasting across Sunday as well to keep your race fix. Next weekend, we've got a couple of races as well going on with MotoGP in the Americas Grand Prix and, of course, Long Beach coming up. And then we've got the weekend after my birthday, but also the Berlin doubleheader as well. So, Jess, coming on to you then, what are you most looking forward to heading to Baku? Your favourite track?
Well, I don't like racing it. I absolutely hate racing it, but I love watching it. I love commentating it. I think it's going to be interesting. The first time that Baku's going to be holding the sprint race and the possible trial of the new format as well. That could be interesting for the drivers. I think we could see a lot of drivers taking a lot of risk, and that's what I like. We could see some carnage, but I'm just genuinely very, very excited for this one. But Baku definitely has the vibes, in my opinion.
Yeah. Jess will be with the Combox with me as well across the weekend because Megan won't be with us because it's her 18th birthday. So she's sitting Sunday out unless Fernando wins and she'll come into the commentary box. Josh won't be with us in qualifying and the race I think is still TBC at the moment. But what are you most looking forward to going to Baku?
Yeah, current plans only free practice 1 in the race, unfortunately. I am very, very busy that weekend, but Baku, good circuit. I like it. Absolute chaos down the front straight into turn 1. Max Verstappen tyre. We do not talk about that. But that was a bit of chaos as well. That was a crazy restart as well, and yeah, crazy Grand Prix that one. But looking forward. What word can I use? It's going to be good to see if they and you might be able to figure out what word I was going to say there, but it's going to be a good weekend if they trial, hopefully, the new format, and we'll see if they use it in future.
Yeah, removing free practice 2 and having Saturday solely for the sprint, with a sprint qualifying and then a sprint race as well. Wasn't the entire idea of the sprint anyway to be a qualifying session? Oh well, they just lost that idea, didn't they? Okay, my thanks to Jess, my thanks to Josh, and my thanks to all of you for watching as well. We will see you in a month's time for Formula 1, but certainly Australia delivered in where the first 2 races of the year disappointed. It was certainly worth getting up for. Thank you very much for your company. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.